I'm going to be reading Prom and Prejudice by Elizabeth Yulberg. It is a chapter book and there are no pictures, so I can't really show the student the pictures of the book, but I am going to read. And I'm going to start from chapter 2, for that is where the story really begins. Prom and Prejudice, chapter 2. The stomach pains always started once the train pulled out of Grand Central Station in Manhattan. When I first took the trip, I had butterflies in my stomach. But now, I knew better. Now the butterflies had turned into vipers. Part of me should have been impressed that I'd been able to survive my first semester at Longbourn. I knew I would have difficulties coming in as a junior, but nothing could have prepared me for the cold, wet greeting given to me by several girls on my floor. They thought a proper hello was throwing a milkshake in my face on my way to orientation. I could still feel the cold shock of the strawberry slush hitting my face. I ended up being late to orientation, and when the headmistress asked me for my excuse, I told her I'd gotten lost. I heard snickering throughout the room and wondered how many people had been planning on the hazing. Most of the other things they did to me were subtler, replacing my shampoo with hair removal lotion. Luckily, I could smell it before it caused any real damage. Tampering with my razor so I'd get a nasty cut on my leg, putting crushed up laxatives in my lemonade mix. I closed my eyes and tried to block out my first week at school. I truly had every intention of coming back from the winter break with a positive attitude. I already knew whom to avoid, pretty much everybody in my class except for Jane, and the other charity case in our class, Charlotte. I was doing well in my classes. I already established myself as the top pianist on campus, which was really important since I was on a music scholarship. And I had a job that I liked because I was able to interact with some people who were normal, aka townies. Oh, and I needed the money. It always seemed to come back to money. And there was Ella Gardenier, my piano teacher. She was one of the most prestigious piano instructors in the country. She was on the board of directors at countless music institutions, and she had a reputation of getting her students into top music programs upon graduation. She was the reason I came to Longbourn, and she was why I had subjected myself to what came along with being a scholarship student. I grasped onto my scrapbook my friends gave me at home for Christmas. I flipped through the pages of photos, notes, memories from my former life. The life in which I had a tight circle of friends, one that never made me question whether I belonged. I smiled as I looked at the pages filled with photos from the many traditions we started in grade school. Anna's Valentine's Day parties, no boys allowed. Our Halloween recreations of Grease in my living room, holiday gatherings. Then I came to the final section of the scrapbook. The pages filled with programs of my various recitals and concerts over the years, and photos of my friends gathered around me to celebrate. The very last page had a program from a concert by Claudia Reynolds, the classic pianist that I looked up to, along with a note signed by everybody. To the next Claudia Reynolds, we miss you, but know you're going to accomplish great things. Don't forget us when you're playing at Carnegie Hall. My eyes began to sting with tears. I could never forget my friends, but I had almost forgotten what it was like to have a supportive group of people cheering me on. I closed my eyes and tried to hold on to the memories tightly so they wouldn't slip away. It was amazing how 2 weeks away from campus could give you a false sense of security. As the train pulled into the station, I envisioned a force field, like an emotional shield enveloping my body. I was smarter, wiser, and I knew better than to let any childish taunts get the best of me. My barrier was up, and there was no way I was going to let anybody in. There was only one person I couldn't wait to see when I got on campus. Lizzie! Jane greeted me as I walked into our room. I visited Jane a few times in Manhattan over the break, since I lived right across the Hudson River in Hoboken, New Jersey. Jane even came to a party one of my friends had back home and impressed even my most critical friends. with her kind-heartedness. I knew that someone somewhere had to be looking out for me, to have Jane as my roommate. After we caught up, Jane wanted to get down to business. So, we have a very important decision to make. She went over to her closet and pulled 3 cocktail dresses. Which one should I wear tonight? My stomach dropped. Longbourn was hosting an upperclassmen reception in Pemberley Academy. The official reason was to welcome the returning students who spent last semester abroad. But I had the feeling it was the start of hunting season. The catch of being a prom date. "You promised me you would go," Jane reminded me. I know. I tried to sound optimistic, but unfortunately Jane could always see through me. "Here, try this on." Jane handed me a beautiful black dress. I always had to borrow clothes from her any time we had a formal event. And we had a lot of formal events. I was standing in our room, half naked, when Jane's younger sister, Lydia, burst through the door. She didn't believe in knocking, or doing anything considerate. After I zipped up the dress, Lydia flounced on my bed and declared, "Is that what you're going to wear?" "Lydia," Jane scolded, "I think Lizzie looks fabulous." I smiled. "You have to think that, Jane. It's your dress." "Oh, right!" Lydia's face fell. "Sorry, Lizzie. It's just that Jane can lend you all the clothes she wants, but you can't necessarily make them fit." "Lydia!" Jane threw a notebook at her sister. "You need to be more polite. Especially—" Jane let her thought trail off, but Lydia and I knew what she meant. Jane and Lydia's father had been laid off over Christmas when his company had merged with another investment bank. Not that it mattered much. He got a huge payout and money didn't seem like an issue, although as word spread throughout campus, you would have thought Jane and Lydia came back from the holidays with leprosy. As Jane and I finished getting ready, Lydia began whining. "No fair! Why can't I come? You better at least let me go prom dress shopping with you." Jane blushed. "Slow down. Nobody's been asked to anything. Yet," Lydia countered. "The reception tonight is just an opportunity for us to catch up after the holidays." "Yeah, especially with a certain someone returning from London." Lydia jumped on my bed, acting years younger than the freshman student she was, and put her hand up to her heart. "Oh, Charles Bingley, how I've missed you so!" She dropped onto the bed with an exaggerated sigh. "That's it." Jane started shooing Lydia out of the door. "Out!" "We need to get finished getting ready." She started nervously adjusting her bracelet. Charles Bingley had spent the previous semester studying abroad in London. Before he left, Jane and Charles had started to get close. From what Jane told me, nothing really happened, since they knew there was about to be an ocean between them. Jane generally kept her feelings close to the vest, but with Charles's imminent arrival, she had become openly giddy. Especially once her sister was out of the room. "Oh, Charles Bingley, how I've missed you so!" Jane called out, laughing. But then she clearly felt that it was too much. She examined herself in the mirror and added, "I guess there is no reason for me to get my hopes up. He's probably emailed with a lot of girls over this semester." One of the most wonderful things about Jane, besides her kindness, was she had absolutely no idea how beautiful she was. She was completely void of vanity. "I'm just excited to see him again," she went on. I'm sure he'll have tons of girls fighting over him for prom." "You're being ridiculous, Jane. Seriously. If Charles Bingley is even half the guy you say he is, he'd be a raving lunatic not to ask you to prom." Jane had promised me that Charles was different from other Pemberley boys I'd met. Talking to them was like being placed in a conversational purgatory, with no hope of being released without significant damage to one's self-esteem. The first time I had met a Pemberley guy, the first words out of his mouth were, "Which mutual funds do you invest in?" When I told another Pemberley boy that I played the piano, he responded, "Is there money in that?" Another had mentioned his father was in the Forbes 400, and not in the bothered 200 either. Within a minute of meeting me, a fourth had kept his eye on my chest the whole time we spoke. And then he moved on to the next girl's chest. For Jane's sake, I prayed she was right about Charles's being unlike those other guys. Jane smiled and took me by the elbow. "You are too kind, Lizzie. Just promise me that you'll try to enjoy yourself tonight. You'll have fun, I promise." I desperately wanted to believe that I could be accepted and treated like a normal person at school. But after last semester, I had no desire to be friends with most of the girls here. How could I be friends with the same people who found so much pleasure in torturing me? No, I knew better. I would do my best to have an incident-free evening. My armor was up, and I was ready.